Hi, thanks for watching. My name is Rob, and I'm trying my hardest to get my head around this whole JavaScript framework thing. And Nuxt seems to be where I want to go, and server-side rendering seems to be what I need to do if I want search engines to be able to see what I'm doing. So I've been looking around for different tutorials, both on YouTube, Medium, Stack Overflow, Reddit, you name it, everywhere. And I found one tutorial that got me pretty close to what I wanted to do, but it didn't quite work. I had to mess around for hours to try to figure out what was broken. And so here's what I've come up with. I've got a working Nuxt on Firebase functions set up, and I'd like to run through it with you. Maybe you've got ideas of how I can do it better, or maybe this will be helpful to you if you've been banging your head around like I have and just want to get it done. So to get started, the place where I got closest was this Medium article here, Quick Nuxt SSR Prototyping. It was written about a year ago, back in 2019. I guess a few things have changed. I'd like to thank William Chong for getting me as close as I possibly could before I had to start getting deep into the weeds of JavaScript. So here we go. I'm going to follow along mostly with this, and I'm going to show you the changes that I needed to make to get a deploy happening in 2020. So the first thing you want to do, of course, is to start a new Nuxt app, which you do with npx create Nuxt app. One thing to note is put it into a source subdirectory. You can call it what you want, but source seems to work fine. That way everything is organized and you won't have any problems. So npx create Nuxt app. This is a Nuxt development test, so that's why I called it NDT. Please call your app something different, a little bit more creative. So NDT, we'll do JavaScript. I can barely understand JavaScript, let alone TypeScript. I'm an NPM user. The one extra thing that I'm going to throw in here compared to the tutorial is I'm going to put Buify in, because I've been using it a bit with a plain old Vue app, and I like it. You might want to give it a try. So I will add that. Don't need any Axios or anything at this point. I'm sure I can add it later if required. ESLint to make sure I don't screw up too badly. Someday I'll figure out testing. This is a universal app, and we'll be throwing it on Firebase, so we need server. We'll throw everything in JS config, and then the Nuxt app will be created. Okay, so Nuxt has been installed successfully. I'm going to actually leave my terminal now, and I'm just going to do everything else inside VS Code. It just seems to work better for me. So I will open the NDT, which we just created. Open up a terminal window and do everything else from here. So let's first do a bit of housekeeping. I'm going to remove the default Git repo that gets created, and I'm going to move it and create a new one into the top directory. So rm rf source.git. I'm going to move source git ignore to here, and I'm going to do git init, start a new Git repository. This is grayed out, which is good, so node modules are not being kept, so that's good. So now let's go in and make sure nothing important is being kept, but I think we're fine there. I'll just run quickly into the source directory and npm run dev to make sure everything is working correctly before we move too much farther. I think it should be fine. we'll check that out on Google Chrome. Chrome seems to be the best for working with Vue applications. I would assume that means it's the same for running with Nuxt. I was running Safari as my basic default browser, but anytime you did updates, it wasn't being reflected. I don't know why, so Chrome is where it's at when it comes to Vue. Alright, so that's working fine. Get back out, and then we'll get started. So, what does it suggest to do? Yes, we've created an app, and we need to install Firebase. I already have tools. So let's do Firebase init. We will require Firestore, functions, and hosting. Use an existing project. I think I mentioned that before, but if not, before you go too far, create your own app inside Firebase. You can create it currently with the Spark free plan, but starting in about a week for me, so in July of 2020, they're going to change it so you need to have the pay-as-you-go Blaze plan so that you can use Cloud Functions. And we need Cloud Functions, so it's cheap. It's $0 unless you start to use it a lot, so don't be too afraid. You can also set budgets. So we've got our Firebase project set up. It's called Nuxt. I've picked it. So we're going to go use an existing project. We'll use the Nuxt project, and we will do defaults pretty much from here on in. So Firestore rules, Firestore indexes, we'll use JavaScript. I guess we'll say no to lint for now, and we'll just install dependencies. So you'll see that we created a functions directory, and that is where everything goes that gets deployed up to Firebase. And hosting assets gets stored to another subdirectory called public. We do not want a single page app, and we're good to go. So you'll see now we have a bunch of Firebase files. The one we want to talk about first is Firebase.json. That is the script that gets run when we deploy. So let's find what's going on with that. Oh, okay, we'll do the cloud render first, just to follow along with the tutorial here. So what we have here, I believe, is almost working or working. Either way, I have put together a GitHub repo. Please feel free to use this as a starting point, and we'll do that. Okay, we'll do that. What do we need? Index. Okay, so this is the cloud function. Effectively, what we're saying is we're requiring Firebase functions, and obviously we need Nuxt. The Medium article suggests using Nuxt start instead of plain old Nuxt. Who am I to disagree? I know nothing about this stuff. So we will use Nuxt start instead of regular Nuxt, and then we'll grab a config file, which we need to work on. And then what that does is it exports an entry point called SSR app, which is the request and result. And that is the actual stuff that does the job. So let's grab this, go to functions index, and we're good to go with that one. What's next? Here we go. This is the description of why you use Nuxt start instead of Nuxt. Please feel free to read that later. Functions package JSON. Okay, this is the important part. This is what has changed a bit in the last year. We can no longer use Node version 8. It has to be Node 10. We also have a bunch of dependencies that we are going to be adding, so I might as well do that now. I'll pull that from Nuxt config. No, I won't. Sorry. I will pull that from package JSON. Grab it all, drop it in. see we got some dependencies based on Vue and Nuxt, and most importantly, Node 10. So we've got that. Back to the main tutorial. Firebase.json. Alright, so this also had a few little issues that I needed to work through, like dots and basically path issues. So let's do that. We'll use my version because that's what I'm doing. So here we go. So when you're pre-deploying, you're going to build, you're going to remove the deployment version, you're going to create a new deployment directory, throw everything in there, and good to go. And when it comes to hosting, same idea. You gotta clear out the old, build the new. Simple, simple. But in this case, the paths are all correct. So that's Firebase.json. We'll drop that in there. And what's next? I think we're getting close to the end. All right, we're talking deploy the app now. Who feels lucky? I do. Firebase deploy. Oh, there we go. One thing I forgot to do. I forget this every time. Got to go into the functions, and you got to install all your npm modules because of the new dependencies that we put in there. Oh, here we go. While we're doing that, oh, it's gone away. Cloud Functions will require pay-as-you-go. So in this tutorial, I haven't upgraded it, but I will. It will require you to do so before this will work for you, likely. So let's give this a try again. Yes, link loader requires. Okay, I don't think I need that. Try again. Aha! Sorry, I'm doing everything in the wrong order this time. So I've forgotten one thing here. The Nuxt config requires a different way of importing, exporting. I'm probably saying it wrong. Sorry, JavaScript people. So we need to go into Nuxt config, and we need to change export default to modules dot. Told you I sucked at JavaScript. We are going into source. We are grabbing Nuxt config module dot exports. Exports equals. Third time lucky, right? While we wait for this, please someone give me a really good explanation of where the default export needs to be changed to this module exports. Is it some ES6 thing? I don't know. Not a JavaScript guy yet. It's kind of baffling. Gotta say, I do love my Rails, but unfortunately I think it's being left behind because I need this real-time database stuff, and Rails just doesn't give me access to it that way. So I'm going in the deep end. I'm building a Nuxt app. We'll see if it works or not. But in terms of a basic deploy, this should work. Third time lucky, right? you'll see how those little changes that have been made over the last year make it difficult for a very basic JavaScript user like myself to figure out what's going on. Export becomes module exports. I don't know. I'm lost. This is JavaScript, man. It's weird. All right, deploy complete. Let's see if we're lucky this time. Open her up. A little bit slow on the first deploy always. Hey, there we go. We have a Buofy Nuxt app running SSR on Firebase functions. So I hope that was as exciting for you as it was for me. And hopefully you get it done with a few less errors than I did. Any questions, comments, if you can make some easy references to where I can go learn things like module.exports, that would be really appreciated. Thanks for watching along, and see you next time.